Hi guys and welcome to a new video. In this video we're gonna talk about the isolated pawn. The isolated pawn structure is a structure many people seem to be familiar about and like to play against it, like to not play with it, but there are many hidden secrets and we will go into some more details than you usually get when playing against an isolated pawn. We won't only talk about some strategies like doubling and trying to win the pawn immediately, because this usually doesn't work, as the pawn is often quite okay defended, but we will see some more advanced strategic concepts and advantages the pawn gives us and how to beat the side with the isolated pawn in a strategic way. So this is a position from one of my recent games, and I will show you how I managed to finally outplay my opponent because he had an isolated pawn. First, of course, it's important to note our knight here is excellent. Black is not getting this d4 push in at any time soon, and we also have the e file for now, so this gives us more activity, and I was ready to enter with rook to e7. My opponent played b5 and I played a3, trying to stabilize the position on the queen side. He cannot play b4 because of ab. Well, maybe you could argue he couldn't do it before, but maybe my knight would lose some stability there. Also now he's not able to play a5 because b5 would always drop. So my opponent played rook to c8 and I decided to play bishop to h3, activating this bishop and actually removing the attacker of the isolated pawn, because it's not our only strategy to win the pawn, but we can play for different things. For example, piece domination, which happened after rook to a8 back and f3. And now we see, while my pieces, they are quite active and they have control over many important squares, diagonals and so on, the opponent's pieces, they are quite limited now because this f3 move really restricts them. And this doesn't come by chance. This comes by the fact that my knight is standing there very, very well, and this is all due to the isolated pawn. Otherwise he could also jump with his knight to the center, for example. But now his pieces are stuck. And one plan for white to continue would be maybe jump to c6 at a good moment, or maybe bring the next rook and maybe try to double rooks on the 7th, provoke some further weaknesses, maybe try to target a6 later, and maybe also finally target d5, but that's not the only thing which could happen. Also, with the current pawn structure, we have it way easier to improve our king to some central squares than black does. Let's see how the game continued. My opponent played h5 here, a move which I do not fully understand, but it's very hard to make a move with black here. So I decided to play king f2. This can be very useful. I control all the entering squares on the e-file. In case he would ever play this, I'm able to go anywhere where I want with my rook, trying to maybe target those pawns over there. So there happened king to f8. I played rook b7. It's important not to fall for some cheap tricks with knight e4 check after rook e1. The connection of the rooks would be broken and I'm losing some material. So that's why I played rook b7. And already now I was having a look at some jumps, knight to here, then knight coming to here, hitting f7 and g6, and maybe being ready to spoil his structure and then maybe go in there with bishop e6 after pawn takes here. Let's see what he did about this. He played knight to e8, which is logical in a certain way because he wants to expel my rook, but it didn't change anything about this maneuver here. I could put my knight to e5, and again, since he didn't have good active options due to his isolated pawn, the knight needed to go passive, and now I was unleashing my pieces, getting very active and they were ready for it because they had so great outposts due to the isolated pawn. Now black is in bad shape. He probably thought this is a great threat. He must take with the pawn, otherwise d5 drops, and played bishop to c2. In this rapid game I did not realize yet that f7 was hanging, but just removed my rook quickly. But now I realized this was a threat that I was taking there, and my opponent blundered it, but it was probably already very hard to defend. Rook f6 is not working any longer due to knight d7 check. And also after something like f6, it's not really solving all the problems. I can jump around like I want. Maybe knight to d7, then knight to b6, or knight to c5, and then rook to e7. There are so many options, and my pieces are way superior here. So my opponent play f5, but now I want tactically hitting the bishop, which is running out of squares, and so I will win the f5 pawn. Bishop b3 followed. I took the pawn, he played d4, I took. He finally got rid of his isolated pawn, but at a cost of one pawn. And yeah, white is technically already winning. I decided to apply one principle which I talked about on this channel already, which is the kill zone. The king here is in danger, but whenever I check him, he will run away. So I decided to cover this square first, threatening a checkmate. And so the king needs to stay in the danger zone, run to the center, and black lost quite quickly here. After knight d6 check, king must go to the middle. Rook e1 check, king goes to d8, rook takes g7. A second pawn is won, and there are several threats incoming. For example, knight e5 will come soon, threatening something like rook to here or knight to here. My opponent tried his luck with rook c8, wanting to play rook to c2, but after knight e5 it was defended, and yeah, I took his rook here. After bishop c2, rook c2, knight c6, he resigned. So I hope I could give you some insights on how to win against the isolated pawn without actually winning it. There are certain concepts. Your pieces are more active, you have more active possibilities. Sometimes you just keep the tension, restrict the pieces, and then at a certain moment you might even attack another target than the isolated pawn itself, because usually one target alone is never enough. So I hope you liked the video. If so, please like and subscribe, really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.